What do you make of these markings?
Ancient, maybe. Keep your eyes on the tunnel.
Talk to TOC. There's something down here.
Deep below the ground lives a civilization known as the Draconians. Older than our species, hidden for millennia, watching. They move through vast subterranean cities, an empire of scales and shadow, ruling not through armies, but through fear. They altered our DNA. They rewrote our history. They crowned our kings and erased our gods. For centuries, humanity has lived blind on the surface, while below, the serpent waits. Now, the cage is cracking, the truth is rising, and the empire of shadows is about to be seen. This is the Draconian agenda. Since the dawn of time, humanity has lived under the gaze of forces unseen. Every myth, every fragment of sacred lore, every carving in stone carries echoes of a truth buried too deep for textbooks, too dangerous for governments, and too persistent to disappear. The serpent, the dragon, the scaled one. It rises in every culture, under different names yet with the same essence. In Sumer it was the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens to shape kings and control bloodlines. In Egypt, the serpent crowned the pharaoh, a reminder that authority came not from the people but from powers older than men. In India, the Nagas were half human, half serpent, dwelling in hidden realms below the earth and surfacing only to alter the course of human history. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was revered as a teacher, a god of knowledge. Yet behind the feathers still coiled the reptilian form. These were not merely symbols of fertility or cycles of life. They were memories. Memories of an empire that came to Earth long before our written records began. Memories of reptilian beings whose power lay not only in their mastery of technology, but in their understanding of control. For millennia, these beings have remained in the shadows. Their dominion was not established through open conquest, but through subtle infiltration, by placing themselves behind thrones, by weaving themselves into myths, by controlling bloodlines that would shape kingdoms. To humanity, they became gods. To themselves, they were farmers, and Earth was the field. The story of humanity, as we are told in classrooms and sermons, is the story of progress, of a species rising from caves to kingdoms, from superstition to science. But beneath that story lies another, whispered in visions and near-death recollections, in sacred texts and suppressed archaeology, the story of captivity. Humanity as a species under guardianship, or more truthfully, under captivity, by a reptilian empire that feeds not only on our resources, but on our very emotions. The empire has a name. The Andromedans, a race who reached out to warn us, called it the Draconian Empire, a civilization ancient beyond imagination, forged in conquest, perfected in fear. Its hierarchy is vast and structured. At the bottom, warriors bred for strength and intimidation. Towering reptilian forms, 8 to 12 feet tall, with scales like armor and eyes that paralyze. Above them, administrators and scientists, cold geneticists who see life not as sacred, but as material to be shaped. Above them still, the royal bloodlines, winged beings of immense psychic strength, rulers by birthright, who bend will and rewrite memory with a glance. And above them all, councils of the eldest, beings who have watched millennia pass like seasons, who measure time not in centuries but in empires. They came to Earth not only for resources, though water, minerals, and biological diversity made our planet precious. They came for us. Humanity itself is the resource. Our DNA is not an accident. It is a library, a tapestry of lineages from across the stars. Many civilizations contributed to what we are. We are a nexus of galactic genetics, a unique experiment with a potential unmatched in this sector of the galaxy. The Draconians saw this. They feared it. And so, they acted. They altered us. They shortened our lifespans. They suppressed our psychic abilities. They fractured our societies into tribes, our tribes into nations, our nations into factions always at war. Because an awakened humanity, a humanity aware of its heritage and potential, would not be livestock. It would be sovereign. And sovereignty is the one thing the Draconian Empire cannot allow. The fingerprints of their control are everywhere. The destruction of knowledge is no accident of history. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, the suppression of Gnostic texts, the rewriting of scriptures, the erasure of indigenous memory. These are not isolated tragedies. They are deliberate strategies. A species kept ignorant cannot rise. A species kept divided cannot unite. A species kept fearful will never awaken. And so the cycle repeated. Civilizations rose, reached toward knowledge, and were cut down. Egypt, Sumer, Indus, Mesoamerica. Always the same story. Knowledge rises. Knowledge is destroyed. Humanity is reset. Yet the memory persists. In our myths, in our symbols, in the deepest recesses of our dreams. Children wake in the night with the sense of a presence in their room, a gaze heavy and deliberate, a shadow that is not a shadow. Adults report missing hours, strange scars, fragmented memories of glowing corridors and reptilian eyes. Most dismiss them, but enough remain who cannot dismiss, who begin to piece the fragments together into a mosaic of hidden history.
You're confronted with it face to face. I think the initial awakening can be quite a shock, but after that, depending upon I think how you're treated. If it had been a gray type of situation where they come in and they poke holes in you and they do all these radical experiments on you as if you were a lab animal, based on my contacts with a group from Andromeda, that there are a group of Zeta Reticuli here that are called the Greys. They are renegade. There are also Zeta Reticulans here from Zeta Reticuli. So there are really two groups. The two groups, one group, which is from Zeta Reticuli, that is working with the Andromedan Council, is very benevolent. They are doing similar experiments, but they are loving and they are caring. On the other hand, their reason for coming here, one of their reasons for coming here is to try to help balance the negativity that's being created by a renegade group from their own star system.
Okay, so the Andromedans tell you that the Alpha Draconians are here now. Where?
There are 1,833 of them that have been living underground between 100 and 200 miles beneath the surface. They've been here, some of them have been here a long, long time. They have lifespans that are thousands of years.
The Serpent has never left. It has only learned to hide better. What we call progress, the rise of technology, the spread of surveillance, the shift of power into fewer and fewer hands, is not accidental. It is orchestration. It is the tightening of the cage at the very moment when humanity has begun to stir. For this is the paradox. Never before has humanity been so close to awakening, and never before has the Empire's grip been so strong. We live at the fulcrum of timelines. In one, we rise, reclaim our sovereignty, and join the interstellar community as equals. In another, we descend into a farm disguised as paradise, a cage disguised as safety, a prison disguised as progress. The Serpent offers us comfort, distraction, protection. It asks only one thing in return: our freedom. And for millennia, we have given it. But the choice is not theirs. It is ours. always it has been ours. And now, in this age of collapse and awakening, of fear and revelation, that choice has never been more urgent. This is the prologue to our story. The serpent waits in the shadows of history. Humanity stands at the edge of an age. The bars of the cage are visible. The door is open. All that remains is the step through. Beneath the surface of human history lies a kingdom not recorded in any textbook, yet present in every myth. It is the empire of the Scaled Ones, an ancient dominion that stretches beyond Earth, across star systems, across eons. Civilizations rise and fall, but the serpent endures. The Draconian Empire, as it is known among those who have encountered it, is not a scattered species, but a meticulously ordered hierarchy. Its foundation is fear, and its architecture is control. At its lowest levels are the warriors, massive reptilian beings bred and trained for intimidation. They are the ones who appear in nightmares, who stand at the foot of the bed during abduction, who stalk through caves in myths of dragons and demons. They can induce paralyzing terror, freezing prey in an instant. Above them sit the scientists, the geneticists, the administrators of empire. They are not concerned with terror, but with efficiency. These are the minds behind the laboratories hidden underground, behind the manipulation of DNA, behind the crafting of hybrids that walk unnoticed among us. At the pinnacle are the royals. Unlike the warriors, their power is not physical but psychic. Some bear wings, remnants of evolutionary forms that once dominated skies of worlds far from ours. They do not need to raise their voices or strike with weapons. Their gaze alone can bend human will, can reorder thought, can plant suggestions so deep that one believes it to be one's own. In myth, they became gods, angels, demons, winged deities ruling from on high. In truth, they are sovereigns of fear, ruling not by sword but by manipulation of mind and memory. And above even them, councils of the eldest, beings whose lifespans stretch into thousands of years, who have watched the rise and fall of empires as humans watch seasons pass. They sit in darkness, their will shaping the course of entire star systems, their eyes fixed upon Earth, not as a jewel, not as a wonder, but as property. To the Draconians, Earth is not sacred, it is not sovereign. It is an asset in their empire. Its resources, its biodiversity, and above all, its people, are theirs to harvest. This is the truth buried beneath the myths of gods descending from the skies, of kings anointed by serpents, of rituals demanding blood. The Draconians feed on more than minerals and water. They feed on emotion, on consciousness itself. Fear, despair, anger. These are not byproducts of empire. They are its lifeblood. Every war, every ritual of sacrifice, every broadcast of terror is a banquet. Humanity has been taught to live in a cycle of trauma because trauma generates the frequencies their empire consumes. To enforce this dominion, they infiltrated, not only into temples and thrones, but into the very fabric of human society. Bloodlines were manipulated. Kings were chosen not by merit, but by genetic compatibility with reptilian overseers. Behind crowns and titles, behind coats of arms and secret societies, reptilian influence lingered. Families were raised to power, given wealth, given land, given armies, not for their brilliance, but for their obedience.
They're ugly. I mean, they think we're ugly, too. And I guess it's all a matter of perspective and belief system. In my belief system, and I'm only taking responsibility for me, they're ugly. They're anywhere from 7 to 22 feet tall. They can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They're reptilian. The ones that have stubby tails, if you see one that has no tail, he's of the warrior class. or the worker class. The longer the tail, the higher their rank. When you see one with long tails, with winged appendages, he's considered royalty. Whenever you see one, you ought to just run like hell. You shouldn't approach it. You shouldn't provoke it. Just get the hell out of its way. Just get out of its way. Just run. You know, there is a way to kill them. If you can't cut off their head, they have two hearts. There's one here, underneath this arm pit, and one here. Or if you can't get to that area, you need to slow it down, you need to hit it right above its groin area. It has a very large liver. You need to wound it there to slow it down. It is not something where man-to-man combat you're going to be able to deal with, because they apparently have the strength of 12, 15 men. They're incredibly quick. They're incredibly psychic. They know what you're going to do before you do it. And you know, if they get here in mass, we got real problems. Real problems.
Empires rose in their image. Rome's legions marched under the sign of the eagle. But in the shadows, serpents whispered. Pharaohs ruled as gods, their crowns adorned with the serpent's head. Monarchs across Europe traced their lineage with pride, unaware or unwilling to admit that behind their genealogies lay a hidden hand. Even in modern republics, the bloodlines endure, power passing not through election, but through invisible inheritance, shaped by the needs of the empire. Yet their infiltration is not limited to rulers. In the 20th century, agreements were struck in silence. Governments desperate for technological advantage welcomed emissaries whose gifts came with hidden prices. Advanced propulsion systems, exotic materials, glimpses of energy sources that could have ended scarcity, all offered in exchange for access. The access was granted. The people were not told. Beneath deserts, beneath mountains, beneath the oceans, joint facilities were constructed. Some of them were built by human hands under the guidance of reptilian overseers. Others predated our civilizations entirely. Ancient complexes rediscovered and repurposed for a new age. Within them, scientists work side by side with entities not of this world. Experiments are conducted that the public will never know of. Abductions are not random but systematic, part of a program stretching back thousands of years. Hybridization, genetic modification, memory erasure. Humanity reshaped without consent. The serpent does not rule by armies alone. It rules by rewriting what it means to be human. But there is a deeper layer still. For all the physical manipulation, all the genetic tampering, the greatest battlefield is the mind. The Draconians learned long ago that controlling thought is more efficient than controlling armies. They mastered the manipulation of perception. They can enter dreams, disguise themselves in forms pleasing to the eye, cloak themselves from human sight. They implant ideas, erase memories, trigger emotions. Most who encounter them will never consciously remember. Those who do are dismissed as delusional, as dreamers, as mad. Thus, the perfect control is achieved. A species that does not know it is controlled will never rebel. And yet, cracks appear. Whistleblowers emerge from programs buried under secrecy. Experiencers remember fragments too vivid to dismiss. Ancient texts resurface with translations that speak too plainly of serpents and watchers. Archaeological anomalies refuse to vanish. A mosaic of truth begins to form, a mosaic pointing always to the same empire, the same scaled presence that has haunted us since the beginning. The serpent is still here. Its empire still hides beneath the surface of our world. Its influence lingers in politics, in economics, in culture. And as humanity awakens, it tightens its grip. For the Draconians know what approaches. They know the cycle cannot continue forever. The Empire of Shadows fears the light of remembrance. And remembrance is rising.
We have met somebody here who is from Peru, who has a friend who is in contact with Andromedans, and they're telling him the exact same thing.
Cool.
So we're going to try to connect and share information with that person, his contact down in Peru. There's also another person who is lecturing here who has done an extensive study on contacts and abductees, and her name is Dr. Carla Turner. And she's saying a lot of the same information that the Andromedans are saying, that there is an incredible amount of disinformation that's out there, and you know, the government is knee-deep in it, or I should say the world, the club, those special elite groups from all over the world in respective governments and banking circles, those that want to control the world, literally, to play God. This club is definitely a part of it, because they do not have control over what's going on now, but they are trying to put out the information so that they can remain in control of us. Let me just tell you basically what they've told me up to date as far as the political situation on our planet today. We do have a joint United States-Soviet-British military base on the dark side of the moon. There are currently 135,000 human beings from Earth living there. Majority of those volunteered. There is also a colony on Mars, which is called Adam and Eve. The dome structures that are on top of the planet are called Adam. The underground facilities are called Eve. Communication March of 1989 between Adam and Eve on Mars and the lunar base, dark side of the moon, ceased. Communication stopped. Now, many of the people that are on Mars are considered to be some of our top minds. And this, in my opinion, is why there is the brain drain, the people just disappearing. They have also said that many of the people up there were drafted and were kidnapped. Essentially what it is a group within the government, not necessarily representing the government in any way, but a group that is a part of the government, ultra secret, etc.
No such agency.
Right. They are building technology that the Greys have given them, and from other UFOs that have crashed or they've retrieved. Another presence in the atmosphere, in our solar system. And it is a very large contingency group from Alpha Draconis. Draconis were the ones who shot down the Russian probe, and I do not know as of today whether or not they have shot down the United States Mars probe. But my understanding is, as of 2.5 weeks ago, that the United States was putting it into an orbit, not actually in the orbit of Mars, but close enough to that it would actually pass around it so that they could take pictures and see what was going on. They're very curious as to know what's going on, and they don't want us to know, because if there's all kinds of activity there and they're feeding the press the pictures, then it's out. And they want to try to maintain the control of the information. This is the only way they can stay in power at this point.
So then the Draconians?
Draconians.
Draconians are kind of in cohorts with the Greys in this Giza intelligence?
In a sense, yes. They're definitely not. They are technologically very advanced, but from what I understand, they're not spiritually advanced.
They meaning?
The Draconians.
Okay.
And what is occurring here is that because the Alpha Draconis were the very first to colonize Earth, they still have the attitude that it is theirs and everything on it is theirs. And they're coming here with that attitude.
Because you said that they live on the Earth 200 miles to 100 miles.
100 to 200 miles below their Hyperborean. But they have been coming out. And there have been reports all over the world, predominantly in the United States, where they are being seen, 7 to 8 foot reptilian lizard types, walking across the street. There have been many. We talked to some people yesterday after the lecture that said right here in Arizona, they have actually seen them. One was a captain and his wife in the Army. Were coming home from a base meeting or a party or something, and there it was, walking right across the street, in the desert.
Beneath our feet lies a second Earth. It is not mapped on schoolroom globes, nor traced on satellite images released to the public. It is the hidden Earth, honeycombed with tunnels, carved with chambers, illuminated by lights that hum with technologies our sciences are only beginning to rediscover. Some of these complexes are human-built, created by governments and militaries in secrecy. Others are far older, predating even the first civilizations we recognize. They were carved with precision beyond our engineering, sealed with stones too massive for our cranes, aligned with star systems not visible when they were made. These ancient cities below the ground were not shelters, not refuges. They were laboratories, temples, and prisons, and many are still in use today. Deep within them, work continues. Work that most would call myth if they heard it. Craft recovered from crash sites are stored there, studied under lights, their technology reverse-engineered and weaponized. Discs, triangles, cylinders, vessels that defy the laws of gravity, that slip between dimensions. All hidden, all denied, while the world above is told to accept the slow pace of rockets and fossil fuels. Yet it is not only craft that lie in these subterranean vaults. It is the genetic archives of a program stretching back thousands of years. Humanity has been altered, again and again. Hybridization is not a modern phenomenon, not a new experiment. It is as old as our myths. In Sumer, kings were said to be chosen by gods who descended from the heavens. In Egypt, pharaohs were depicted with elongated skulls, their proportions subtly altered from those of common men. In Mesoamerica, rulers claimed descent from feathered serpents. In the caves of Peru, mummies with elongated heads lie preserved, their DNA defying classification. Everywhere, in every corner of the earth, are traces of tampering. The hybridization served many purposes. At times, hybrids acted as intermediaries, demigods worshipped by the masses, ensuring loyalty to the Serpent Empire. At times, they acted as rulers themselves, their altered genetics allowing direct influence by reptilian overseers. And at times, they were experiments, prototypes in a long process of perfecting control. Today, the program continues. Those who wake in the night to find themselves paralyzed, lifted from their beds, remember fragments of it. The cold tables, the instruments of light, the beings who stand over them. Some gray, some reptilian, some human yet not quite human. Samples taken, memories erased, hours lost. To the experiencer, it feels like violation. To the Empire, it is simply management of the herd. Yet the purpose is larger than any one abduction. It is about the species itself. The Draconians know that humanity carries within its DNA the potential to surpass them. We are the product of many lineages. Our genetic code is a tapestry woven by civilizations across the stars. Within us lies the capacity for psychic communication, for energy manipulation, for lifespans far greater than those we know today. That potential terrifies the Serpent. And so they edit, they splice, they turn genes on and off, they introduce traits that serve control, docility, dependence, psychic suppression. They seed bloodlines that carry reptilian markers, ensuring a continual foothold among rulers. And they monitor, always monitor, to keep the species within the limits they have set. But evidence remains, even among the ruins. In Paracas, Peru, skulls elongated not by binding but by birth. Their cranial capacity greater than ours, their DNA anomalous, carrying markers unknown to human genetics. In the stones of Silustani, cut and polished with techniques beyond iron tools, whispering of builders who possessed knowledge of resonance, frequency, and levitation. In the Ica stones, engraved with images of advanced surgery, extinct animals, and star maps far older than the textbooks allow. These are not fakes, they are forbidden truths. Mainstream archaeology dismisses them. Museums hide them in basements. Scholars laugh them out of journals. But the laughter is the mask of fear. Fear of what these relics would mean if accepted. They would mean our history is not what we were told. They would mean humanity did not rise alone. They would mean the serpent's hand has always been on the wheel. The underground laboratories today are but a continuation of this ancient story. There, in secrecy, the genetic work continues. Children are born with gifts they cannot explain, heightened psychic senses, memories of other worlds, abilities dismissed as imagination. Others are born hollow, disconnected, their spark dimmed, products of tampering designed to suppress. We are told these are anomalies, accidents, curiosities, but they are the ripples of a hidden current, the signs of a species under experiment. A species under experiment. And yet, for all their precision, for all their secrecy, the Empire cannot fully contain us. For within the human code lies something they cannot predict, cannot edit, cannot erase. Call it soul, call it consciousness, call it spirit. It is the spark that dreams of freedom, the spark that reaches for the stars, the spark that whispers in the quiet of the night. I am more than I was told. This spark breaks through even in captivity. It is why myths of rebellion echo across cultures. Prometheus stealing fire, Moses defying Pharaoh, Quetzalcoatl promising to return, heroes slaying dragons, saints crushing serpents, shamans transforming into eagles to escape the coils. These are not mere stories. They are encoded memories of resistance. They are messages left for us by those who remembered. The serpent rules with laboratories and lies, with genetics and shadows. But the spark persists. And once enough sparks remember, the darkness cannot hold. The underground is not only a prison, it is a reminder. A reminder of how far the serpent has gone to keep us asleep, and a reminder of how powerful we must be for them to fear us so deeply. The experiments continue. The hybrids walk among us. The laboratories hum beneath our feet. But above, on the surface, something stirs. People begin to question. Symbols begin to be seen for what they are. The cage trembles, and in that trembling lies the beginning of freedom.
There is no race any better than us. Just because they're different, just because they're more evolved, doesn't mean that they're better. We are equal. We're just not maybe as aware as they are. But that doesn't mean that any race is any better or any less. In fact, we're all equal.
So we should not worship anybody.
Hell, no, absolutely not. That's how we got into this mess in the first place.
Right.
Absolutely. If you want to worship somebody, worship the God within you. That's it. Worship no one else. And if you're going to have a tyrant in your life, let it be that part of you that's critical of you. Let that be your only tyrant. Don't give anybody else any power outside of your physical form to be a tyrant, to control you, or manipulate you in any way. Be yourself.
If the underground is the body of the Empire, fear is its blood. Everything the Draconian hierarchy has built, every program it sustains, every ritual it orchestrates, flows from this single truth. Fear is nourishment. It is not merely a tactic, it is sustenance. This is the secret hidden behind human history's endless parade of wars, sacrifices, inquisitions, plagues, and collapses. These were not random accidents of a chaotic species. They were harvests. When blood is shed, when despair grips a population, when terror pulses across the collective consciousness, something invisible is fed. Ancient texts spoke of it in symbols. The gods demanded sacrifice. Cities built altars and pyramids where hearts were offered. Not because the gods were cruel, but because the gods were hungry. And those gods, the serpents behind the masks of myth, understood that human pain emits a frequency. That frequency can be absorbed. It can prolong their lives, expand their power, sustain their empire. As the ages passed, the rituals changed. The altars grew less obvious. Sacrifice became war. Bloodletting became famine. Terror became entertainment. But the frequency remained. And so did the feeding. Modern humanity believes it has outgrown the old gods. It believes it has traded superstition for science. Yet the same patterns persist. Wars erupt on cue, leaving millions traumatized. News cycles broadcast violence and fear, turning every living room into a theater of despair. Economies are crashed and rebuilt, keeping populations anxious, dependent, distracted. This is not simply corruption or incompetence. It is engineering. The serpent has learned to harvest without temples. The world itself has become the temple. But fear is not the only frequency. The Draconians have perfected subtler methods. They have learned to manipulate dreams. They have learned to insert images, thoughts, and emotions directly into human consciousness. Nightmares of pursuit, abduction, helplessness. These are not always the random firings of a sleeping brain. They can be broadcasts, feeding loops designed to keep the collective frequency low. This manipulation extends to religion and culture. False gods are raised, promising salvation but delivering submission. Prophets are co-opted, their messages twisted into dogma that reinforces hierarchy. Even symbols of freedom are inverted into symbols of control. The serpent is crowned, worshipped, disguised as savior. Humanity kneels, unaware of the mask. For thousands of years, this system has operated flawlessly. A species traumatized in childhood, divided in adulthood, fearful in old age, will never awaken to its power. It will produce the frequencies the empire needs, generation after generation, without ever realizing it is being farmed. But cracks are appearing. Trauma no longer silences as it once did. People are speaking of their nightmares, their visions, their encounters. The internet, for all its surveillance, has become a conduit of awakening. Ancient texts are being retranslated without the filters of empire. Symbols are decoded. Patterns emerge. And when the pattern is seen, the spell weakens. Fear only nourishes the empire when it is unconscious. Conscious fear transforms into courage, into resolve. Conscious pain transforms into healing. Conscious trauma becomes wisdom. These are the frequencies the Draconians cannot digest. Love, unity, awareness. To them, these are not food but poison. This is why every culture's myths of liberation involve love, courage, and remembrance. Heroes do not defeat dragons with greater violence. They defeat them by awakening to their true power. Saints do not crush serpents with swords, but with compassion. Shamanic traditions do not flee from the underworld, but journey through it, return with knowledge, and teach their people to do the same. These are not quaint stories. They are manuals of escape. The machinery of fear is vast. It is encoded in our institutions, our media, our rituals, even our genetics. But it is not invincible. It depends on our participation. It depends on our consent. It depends on our forgetting. The serpent knows the farm is awakening. It knows the food supply is threatened. It knows the cage door is swinging open. And so it doubles down. It offers new gods of technology, new promises of safety, new distractions of virtual worlds. You are small. You are helpless. You cannot change this. But behind the whisper is desperation, for it knows a secret it will never speak. You are not helpless. You are not small. You are the key. The machinery of fear is an illusion sustained by your belief. Withdraw that belief, and it collapses. Withdraw your consent, and the empire ends. This is the knowledge the Andromedans tried to impart. This is the message encoded in every myth of dragon slaying, every prophecy of a golden age, every story of a hero who awakens and frees his people. Fear is the prison. Awareness is the key. And once you hold the key, the lock turns easily. The empire of the Serpent thrives on your forgetfulness, but your remembrance is rising. And remembrance, once begun, cannot be stopped.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ringleaders then of this whole orchestration that's going here on Earth. According to your Andromedan sources, there are 22 races originally colonized the Earth, the first race being the Reptilians from Alpha Draconis. What was the nature of their colony here?
Well, they're Hybridization. Basically, they're explorers. And they're also genetic engineers. They would just colonize, they would take samples, they would hang a flag and say, this belongs to us, just like we did with the moon. But except we weren't the first ones there. Exactly what we've done. They were explorers. And they would just go to a place, they would see what was there, they would explore it, if there were minerals that they needed, if there were other life forms, organisms, whatever it was that they needed, they took, and then when it was done, they had enough, they moved on, and just kept exploring and expanding their realm of exploration or territory.
There are moments in the life of a species when time seems to thicken, when every small act acquires a gravity it did not carry before. We call them turning points, and pretend they are rare, but in truth they are always present. Like doors in a hallway we pass every day. Most remain closed because we are moving too quickly to notice. Occasionally one stands ajar, and a draft of another future touches our skin. We shiver, hesitate, and either quicken our pace or slow down enough to reach for the handle. Humanity stands at such a door now. It has many names: awakening, bifurcation, the great choice. But its essence is simple. Shall we live as if we are property in a well-appointed pen, or as if we are sovereign beings in a living cosmos? This is not philosophy. It is architecture. One choice builds a world of invisible fences. The other builds a world of invisible bridges. The Serpent's empire wagers that we will pick the pen. It tells us that freedom is chaos, and that love is liability. The other path is not a retreat from technology or an escape into fantasy. It is the reordering of means and ends. On this road, tools serve life rather than replace it. Knowledge returns to its home, not as a weapon that coerces, but as a light that invites. The Draconian agenda frames the decision as impossible. Choose safety or freedom, order or love. But this is a counterfeit dilemma. Safety without freedom is a form of death. Order without love is a machine consuming its makers. Real safety grows from relationship, between people and land, between species seen and unseen. Real order is the harmonics of living systems, not the metronome of a prison. To step through the door of sovereignty, we must first understand what sovereignty is not. It is not domination. It is not the loudest voice telling the others where to stand. It is not the perfection of the self sealed off from the claims of the world. Sovereignty is the ability to choose in alignment with the deepest truth you can contact, without coercion, and in awareness of the whole you are part of. It is agency braided to responsibility. It is the refusal to sign contracts with fear. This is why the Empire targets attention. Attention is the antechamber of choice. Capture attention with catastrophes and entertainments, and the door of sovereignty seems to vanish. Teach the nervous system to anticipate the next shock, and you can shepherd a whole civilization past the open gate of its future without a single shout or shot. The bars are made of headlines. The lock is made of scroll. The key is where it has always been, in the witness who chooses what to feed with the light of awareness. There will be arguments. There are always arguments at the threshold. Some will say the world is too complex for ordinary people to steer. Leave decisions to experts, they will urge. Trust the models. Yield to the consortium of institutions that promises to handle reality on your behalf. But every empire has spoken in this voice. It sounds like relief until you notice you are no longer speaking at all. A species that outsources its perception forgets how to see. Others will say that awakening requires retreat, that cities must be abandoned, that technology is rot. This too is a trap, a mirror inversion of the Serpent's sales pitch. The problem was never the tool. It was the hand that held it, and the story the hand believed. A plow can wound a field or feed a village. A signal can scatter or gather. A network can monitor or mentor. Do not underestimate what such ordinariness can do to an empire of trance. A mother who teaches a child to test gifts for hooks is dismantling the harvest model. A healer who treats fear as a frequency rather than a master is closing a valve in the feeding system. A coder who refuses to build addictions into an interface is withdrawing consent from architecture that monetizes nervous systems. A council that measures prosperity by the health of soil and song, rather than by abstract indices, is rewriting the scoreboard the Serpent uses to justify its rituals. There will be pressure. There is always pressure in the corridor between worlds. Contracts will glitter, and penalties will bite. The Empire knows how to tax a conscience and subsidize a surrender. This is where courage reveals its true shape. Not as spectacle, but as a daily fidelity to what the soul has recognized. Do the small, faithful thing. Repeat. Repetition is how spells are made. Repetition is how spells are unmade. Some will ask for guarantees. What if the sovereign road fails? What if we fall? The honest answer is that freedom offers no guarantees. Only capacities. But capacities compound. A people practiced in truth-telling can make amends faster than a people practiced in denial. Stand, then, at the door with your ordinary holiness, your breath steady, your eyes unpurchased, your hands ready to do the next right thing. The Serpent will call this naivete. It is strategy. The Empire cannot model a people who act from conscience, because conscience is not programmable. It cannot forecast a civilization that prizes relationship over extraction, because extraction is the only math it knows. The hour is late only to those who measure by clocks. Measured by awakenings, we are exactly on time. Measured by courage, we are at the beginning of abundance. The door is not magic, it is work, but it is open. And it will not close because someone told you it is not there. The choice of ages is not a riddle, but a remembering. Walk through together, and the world rearranges around your footsteps. Walk through alone, and you will find you are not alone for long. You wanted a sign. Here it is. You are still reading. Something inside you has not consented to the diminishment on offer. That unconsenting part is the seed, and the map, and the key. Guard it, water it, share its fruit. The Serpent's calendar marks this season as harvest. Let ours mark it as homecoming.
Originally they were. They were dumped in Alpha Draconis. Nobody knows exactly where they came from, and my understanding is that even in their ancient history, they don't know exactly where they came from. But they were left in Alpha Draconis because that particular system offered them the highest probability of survival. And from there, they were able to create craft, space travel, I mean, they're magnificent in what they did, and they're to be commended for what they did. But the fact that they need to control and dominate and manipulate to the degree, sorry, I have a problem with that. And so does half of the other of the galaxy. That's just the way they are. They're the biggest bully. Nobody can beat them up or wipe them out, so therefore they have no motivation to change. So that's the space they hold. And the Andromedans actually consider them the ultimate warriors, which says a lot, for whatever reasons. We have so much experiences, and because of our emotions, which is really our strength, which really sets us apart from all the other races out there, even the other human races, we have tremendous capabilities to create things. And, but we need to get clear of what's real and what isn't. We also need to get really clear about being able to create our own future, to create our own reality, and not have somebody say, well, that doesn't work for me, so you're going to have to do this. Play God and ruler over us.
Sense of responsibility is
right.
so important in all of this.
It's with any sense of power, with any knowledge, comes responsibility. That's exactly right. And the divine plan is one of freedom, free expression. Free expression, free expression, free expression. It is not one where they want to implant us and they say, you are going to be a worker, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. Sorry, that's not what it's all about. And if anybody tries to force that stuff down your throat, fight it.
Every culture has spoken of an ending and a beginning, a moment when the world is remade. Some call it apocalypse, others call it renewal, the return of a savior, the coming of a golden age. The names differ, the symbols shift, but the heartbeat is the same. The recognition that history is not a straight line but a cycle. A time of forgetting is always followed by a time of remembering. Darkness is always followed by dawn. The Serpent Empire, for all its cunning, has never been able to erase these prophecies. It has twisted them, cloaked them in fear, weaponized them to frighten the faithful. But it cannot erase them. They are too deeply woven into the human soul. They are memory carried forward from lives lived under stars far from Earth. Reminders whispered from ancestors who knew the cycles of galactic time. In the Christian tradition, it is the revelation. A dragon rising from the sea, a beast deceiving the nations, but also a final triumph where a new heaven and earth appear. The imagery is dense, distorted by centuries of translation. Yet at its core is the pattern. The serpent has its season. In the traditions of the Americas, the prophecies tell of the return of the feathered serpent. Some expect Quetzalcoatl to descend once more, not as a conqueror, but as a teacher, a reminder of wisdom lost. Among the Norse, Ragnarok is the twilight of the gods, when Jormungandr, the world serpent, rises from the deep, spewing venom across the land. But in the ashes of destruction, a new world is born, green and pure, where gods and humans walk together in peace. And in the oldest myths of Sumer, in tablets cracked and weathered, we find echoes of wars between gods, of beings who came from the stars and shaped humanity. Even there, buried in clay, is the whisper, the rule of the serpent is not forever. Why do these prophecies echo across time and continent?
They won't come up as long as we feed them down there. You understand? It's about human beings selling themselves out. About a small group. I think it was, the expression that always comes to mind is what was in that Star Trek movie, I don't know which one it was, where Spock says to Captain Kirk, it's the needs of the few that outweigh the needs of the many. But he says he says it the other way around, where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But the echelon attitude here, the needs of the few outweigh the needs of humanity. And sorry, that just isn't right. But it's going to have to be humanity that's going to rise up and take the stand. You're just going to have to turn off your televisions. They're going to have to get in their car. They're going to have to fire everybody in Washington, D.C. that knows and does nothing. And they're going to have to do something. You know, this apathy's got to end. Otherwise, the way we live is going to end. Period. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, and I'm not coming from a fear space. I'm really quite angry about the apathy and the fact that, you know, when people give lectures and try to tell this, people want to stand up and fight with them. Look at what's happening around us. The indications are everywhere, everywhere. The truth is now an obscure thing. You know, the lie is the norm. There's something wrong here. What's wrong with this picture? There's no need for us. I mean, look at where we are. Look at us right now as a civilization, as a society, okay? They don't need anything. They have all this technology that they want. We can't really offer them except maybe do some work for them, but they don't need all of us to work for them. I can't see it. What does it say?
They don't respect human life.
They don't respect human life in any way whatsoever. And this goes back to Lyra, to where the original war started. When they got to Lyra originally, they saw this human race that was plentiful in food, that could grow food, that could do all of these agricultural things. And mankind on a whole is really agricultural. We really, as a race, if we were left alone, would be nurturing the earth. We would be living in tribal communities like the Native American Indians did. You know, that's really our essence, our nature, I'm sorry. That's really our nature, our essence. And, you know, the cities and the culture that we're living in now has totally cut us off from the land, from what our real essence is, which is nature. And, you know, we're starting to feed off each other now. It's like so bizarre. You know, it's like when I see the Andromedans or when I've been exposed to the Pleiadians, when I see how they live and they teach and they live with each other and they respect each other, and I come here, it's like, you know, it reminds me of that sentence that Abraham Lincoln, that quote that Abraham Lincoln once said. You know, if you are above the earth looking down, you could be an atheist. But when I'm on the earth looking up and seeing the heavens, I know there's a God. It's like the duality. And I think enough of us, more of us, really need to start taking the perspective that what we're doing here isn't right. You know, we need to get in touch with what's out there, with just the whole idea that, God, how did we get here? What makes me be here? You know, as opposed to going home after work, turning on TV, watching 3 hours of television, going to bed, getting up the next morning, going to work and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, like robots. Throw the televisions away. A lot of these, you know, all this metaphysical stuff, you know, where you chose to be here, a lot of, you know, in some situations that's true. When you're creating your reality and in your space. But when you're being invaded, that's not karma. That's a violation of free will, you know.
If your free will is being violated, Alex, what should you do?
You should ask for help.
Okay.
Ask for help. Put a call up to God. Put a call up to heaven. Put a call to the Andromedans, the Pleiadians, whomever. Just put a call up and deal with it. You know, I don't know. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. They don't like us. We're considered a food source for them. For them. You know, we're a food source for the Greys, but in an entirely different way.
There comes a moment in every story where the curtain of denial can no longer be held aloft. When the audience sees the machinery behind the play, when the masks of the actors crack, and the truth steps forward unhidden. For humanity, that moment is now. The serpent has hidden itself in myth, in politics, in bloodlines, in science. It has worn the masks of gods and saviors, kings and presidents, angels and demons. It has convinced us we were small, helpless, temporary. A species stumbling blindly across a hostile world. But the time of masks is ending. The time of remembrance has arrived. The message is simple, yet it shakes empires. Remember who you are. You are not victims. You are not livestock. You are not the property of reptilian monarchs who believe the stars are theirs to divide. You are heirs to a cosmic inheritance, carriers of a genetic tapestry woven from civilizations far older and wiser than the Serpent's empire. You are sovereign beings, luminous at your core. This is not theory. This is not poetry. Consciousness organizes matter. Frequency bends reality. The Serpent knows this. That is why it floods you with terror, with outrage, with despair, because it knows your consciousness is a field generator, and that field can alter the trajectory of worlds. The future is not fixed. It is a tapestry of possibilities, shimmering, awaiting the threads you choose to weave. The Andromedans, the teachers from the stars, said it clearly. We cannot choose for you. This is your test. They will not intervene with armies or fleets, for that would rob humanity of the one thing the Serpent cannot counterfeit: sovereignty. They can warn, they can whisper, they can remind us of the power we carry. But the step through the door is ours alone, and so the responsibility rests with us, to remember, to refuse fear, to live as if we are free, until freedom crystallizes around us. Make no mistake, the Serpent will not go quietly. It will hiss louder. It will thrash harder. It will deploy every illusion at its disposal. It will offer false saviors, counterfeit awakenings, digital heavens where the soul is traded for convenience. It will try to convince you that resistance is futile, that freedom is impossible, that love is weakness. But its desperation is the sign of its end. Predators thrash most violently when their prey remembers it has wings. These symbols are not fantasies. They are memories of what you are. You stand at the edge of an age. Behind you lies a history of captivity, of manipulation, of trauma repeated until it became culture. Before you lies a horizon unimagined. Not utopia, not perfection, but freedom. Freedom to learn, to build, to heal, to love without chains. Freedom to take your place among the civilizations of the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. The Serpent knows this. It has always known this. That is why it chose Earth, why it clamped its coils around this planet with such ferocity. For within humanity lies a potential unlike any it has ever encountered. We are not a mistake. We are a convergence. And when convergence awakens, empire crumbles. Do not wait for a savior to arrive from the sky. Do not wait for governments to confess. Do not wait for permission from thrones that never had authority over you. The awakening begins when you say, "No more. I will not live in fear. I will not live as property. I will live as sovereign, now." Speak it. Live it. Teach it to your children. Hold it when the Serpent whispers otherwise. This is how the cage dissolves. This is how the farm ends. This is how the door swings open. The Serpent Empire has endured for millennia, but it has endured only because we consented in ignorance. Withdraw that consent in awareness, and its empire dissolves. It is not invincible. It is not eternal. It is a shadow, and shadows cannot endure when the light is remembered. You are that light. Always you have been. Always you will be. The testimony is given. The choice is yours. The Serpent coils. It always has. Its shadow winds through our myths, our monuments, our memories. It crowns kings. It whispers in temples. It feeds on the unspoken fears of the night. For thousands of years it has seemed eternal, an empire too vast, too hidden, too cunning to ever be challenged. And yet, even in the deepest coils of history, humanity has dreamed of freedom. Every story of dragon slaying, every myth of gods cast down, every prophecy of dawn breaking after long darkness has carried the same truth. No empire lasts forever. Even the Serpent's time must end. The scales fall from our eyes. The cage is seen for what it is. And once seen, it cannot hold. The end does not come with thunderbolts from the sky or fleets descending from the stars. It comes in quiet remembrances, in small awakenings that ripple outward until they become tidal. It comes when an individual refuses to feed the machinery of fear, when a community reclaims its stories, when a people remember that sovereignty was never something to be granted by rulers, but something to be lived by each soul. The serpent thrives on ignorance. The light of remembrance is its undoing. And that light is spreading, faster than any empire can contain. Look around. The cracks are everywhere. The myths resurface. The hidden texts reappear. The forbidden archaeology refuses to be buried. Whistleblowers step forward. Children speak of dreams that echo prophecies. Technologies once hidden in vaults emerge in visions and experiments, but fear no longer tastes the same. For more and more, fear is being met with awareness. Pain is being transmuted into wisdom, trauma into courage. This is the alchemy the serpent cannot digest, the turning of shadow into light. Prophecies once dismissed as fables begin to look like maps. The dragon of Revelation, the Kalki of the Hindus, the fifth world of the Hopi, the return of Quetzalcoatl, the phoenix rising, all speak of this moment. This is the crossroads of timelines. The serpent cannot choose for us. The Andromedans will not choose for us. The choice is ours, as it has always been. And this is the secret the serpent has always feared. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is powerful beyond measure. The harvest of fear, the manipulation of genetics, the rewriting of history, all of it was designed to suppress a truth too dangerous for empire to allow. That each human being is a sovereign spark of creation, capable of remembering, capable of choosing, capable of reshaping reality itself. You are not a bystander in this story. You are the story. The myths do not point to a hero who will come. They point to a people who will awaken. They point to you. The serpent has ruled for millennia, but millennia are a moment in the life of eternity. The dragon rises, yes, but the rising is its last act. The dawn is breaking, and no shadow can stop it. The door is open. Step through.